got to dig in a little deeper to Psalms 121 this week? Did anybody do their homework? All right. Are y'all enjoying it? Is it starting to kind of feel like the rhythm of how to study this way? I know Susan has really been enjoying it. She hasn't done this type of a study before, so it's been exciting for me to hear back from some of you that this is new and different and you're actually liking it. So a lot of times we don't like new and different, right? Sometimes we're like, yeah, I think I'll do it the old way where I just have a study book and I'm told what to answer and that's all I have to do. But I think that you'll be blessed by digging in this way over this semester. Okay, so Psalms 121, we're going to start with my first stop is accompanied by Yahweh on the climb. Accompanied by Yahweh on the climb. I'm going to read verses 1 through 2 of Psalms 121. It says this: I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. The first thing we see is that he is changing his posture, is he not? He's lifting his eyes to the hills from where his help comes from. So Susan's going to share real quick just a brief little explanation of something she shared to me, and you'll have to do it loudly for Julie's group to hear you on the video.
You want me to come up there?
Yeah, sure. Come on up. About this idea of the psalmist lifting his eyes to the hills and changing his posture.
Many of y'all know that I am a massage therapist. I talk to people all the time about pain in their shoulders. What do we do every day of our lives? What's something that we do?
Look at our
We're on our phones, we're on the computer, we're talking to people, little ones, all of this, and our shoulders
Susan
do
talking
this.
to me.
So I want everybody to do this. You're down like this. What do you feel? Stress, tight, hurts, doesn't feel good, right? Can I borrow you? All of your muscles from here to here attach right here. And so when you're down like this, you're stretching out those muscles. And that's why they're angry with you. They're pulling. They want to come back. Okay, so I'll go back to this. Now I just want you to lift your eyes up. Can you do anything? No? Okay, keep lifting until you got your whole head up. Now I want you to roll your shoulders back. What's the difference that you feel?
Relax. Yeah.
That's where your body is supposed to be. When you look up, you can't be this way. When you look up and you're expecting that help from the Lord, you're ready to receive it. Your body's in the correct position to get it. I think of rays of sunlight hitting me. If I'm like this, I get this much. If I'm like this, there's a lot more surface area.
Thank you so much. Good word. I love word pictures, and so when she told me that, I said yes. I think that would be a great thing for you to share with us, because it just helps us to envision when we are downtrodden and we're frustrated and we're discouraged. It's not just that we're supposed to say, "Dear God, will you please help me?" but we're supposed to expectantly call out for Christ and for his help in our lives. And so he's looking up to those mountains, right? But he's not just looking to the mountains as though the mountains are going to produce some kind of help. He's looking beyond them to the creator, the maker of heaven and earth. So he knows that it's not coming from creation, but from the one who created both that creation and the author of the psalm himself. So the other thing I noticed is that it says from where my help comes from. So the help is not waiting at the top of the mountain. The help is not waiting at the other side of the journey. I read an article this week about a man named Savigny, I'm not really sure how you say it. He was climbing, he's like a really intense mountain climber, right? Like Everest kind of mountain climber. So he and a friend were hiking a mountain in the Canadian Rockies, one of the very, very difficult mountains in the Canadian Rockies. And all of a sudden there was an avalanche, and that avalanche came down and it moved them 2,000 feet back down the mountain. And when he came to, he realized his friend had died and there were several injuries. He began to assess. Later he found out those injuries were a broken back in 2 places, busted up knees, severed nerves all throughout his body, really, really busted up, blood everywhere. So he kind of assesses himself and the fact that his friend has now died, and he just decides that his only option is to close his eyes and wait for death to come. And as he's sitting there trying to just prepare himself for whatever was to come, he begins to hear a voice very clearly on his right side that begins to talk to him and encourage him not to give up, but to hold on. And then the voice continued to tell him literally specific details of what he needed to do to find safety. So he listens to this voice that's clear as day to him, a male voice, and he follows these instructions and takes his lead and goes through all of these steps, and all of a sudden is out of the avalanche, and he walks out into an open area where there's a base camp, and there's 3 skiers there who've just arrived. One of them is a nurse, and one of them is a professional skier. So they tend to his wounds all that they can, and they get him to safety. So he was able to survive and is again climbing today. Sadly, this man is not a believer. He is an atheist. I believe when I look at his story from the outside, that the Lord is trying to draw him in. That in fact, this was the 3rd man, or the 4th man that was in the fiery furnace, right? This is an angel of God who's trying to draw this man to himself, and he's not yet bowed his heart to him. But that happens many times with us as believers when the Lord walks us through. He walks with us and he walks us through. So Yahweh God descends the mountain in order that his child might ascend it. So Yahweh comes down the mountain bringing his aid to us from where his help comes from. The help is coming. It's not waiting. He comes down the mountain bringing his aid to us. He doesn't simply stand on the heights calling down his encouragements to us. You see, Yahweh descends the mountain in order to ensure that you will ascend. This God that we serve comes down. He wrestles through the trial and the pains of this life with us. He moves us upward toward the holy city of God. So be encouraged. And I think of the verse, does anybody know Isaiah 20:31, I believe it is, 30:21. It says, whether you turn to your right or to your left, you will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk ye in it. This is the voice on the mountain. This is the voice under the avalanche that is speaking clearly to his people or those he's calling to himself, which way we are to go. Sometimes it doesn't sound very clear, but oftentimes when we look back, we can see, oh, God was leading. I believe many of you probably have a story where you can look back and say, even though I felt like I was at the bottom of that avalanche, when I look back, I see the hand of God. His voice was kind of muffled, but he was speaking. And when we thought we didn't know what to do and we stepped forward in faith anyways, that was actually his voice. He was actually moving us forward and upward. So our next stop is kept by Yahweh at all times. The first one was accompanied by Yahweh on the climb, and the second one is kept by Yahweh at all times. I'm going to read verses 3 and 4. It says, he will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. Though I'm going to read all the way through 8. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade on your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore. So what is one of the words you marked this week in Psalms 121? Keeper. So if you weren't using, our booklets, we have the ESV version. If you weren't using it, some versions like the NASB have the word preserver, different translations, but meaning they both mean the same thing, to keep or to preserve. So yes, that's one of the things that we marked a bunch. So one of the things I want us to do as pilgrims on this journey is to practice declaring who your keeper is, rather than fretting over what you need to be kept from or in. So practice declaring who your keeper is, rather than fretting over what you think you need to be kept from or kept in. When we put our eyes and our focus on who he is, we have a better focus. So when we were in India the last day, Kevin and I were at a hotel that we'd stayed at the night before, and long story short, Rusty and John were at a different spot with our guide, and so they were going to come over that morning, the last day in country, and take us to tour. That was going to be our one day while we were there, just to kind of hang out and tour around, and I really wanted to go to the little Indian street market, really, really bad. Have you ever seen pictures of it? It's like super all of them. I mean, they're everywhere, but it's really, really cool to me. It's my favorite thing about India, besides the people. So anyways, we were going to go do that. Well, we had a horrible night's sleep, first of all. In the 9 days that we were gone, plans were not maybe the greatest, and we actually were not in a bed 4 out of 9 nights at all. And so this was one of the nights we did finally get into a bed this night. So that's not even one of the 4. I think we got into the hotel about 2 a.m. that night. So I had a really rough night's sleep, and I don't know if it was the smog in that area, because of course that's very polluted in most of the big cities. This city that we were in has 15 million people in this city, so there's a lot of smog. I woke up, my eyes were practically swollen shut. I felt horrible. And so Rusty and the couple of guys that were going to take us touring had got to the hotel at like 11 a.m. and I was just miserable. I was like, I don't want to. And so we thought, okay, we'll let them go on their way, and then we'll get like a, Uber or somebody to pick us up later, and we'll just go find a street market somewhere. So we started trying to do that about 2 or so that afternoon, and we could not find an Uber anyway. So anywhere, they wouldn't come. They didn't want to come get us where we were, I guess. And so we gave up, and we were just hanging out in this hotel room. That is a really long story that has nothing to do with almost any of what I'm talking about. But remember, I'm short on a few nights' sleep right now, and still jet lagging. So, but while we're sitting there in this coffee shop at the hotel trying to just pass the time away, this big TV screen over in this coffee area, or kind of in a bar area far from us, had some sport on it that Kevin had never he couldn't figure out what that sport was on TV. And so he's a very curious person about sports in particular. So he finally is like, we got to walk over there and see what that's about. So we walk over to this big screen, and there's these 2 young adults, real young, seem really young, working there. And so we start asking them, what is this sport? And so the sport is called kabaddi. And that's how they pronounced it. Some guy on a YouTube video said it different, but I'm going to trust them because they're Indian. And so they said it's called kabaddi, and it's gotten really big in India right now. Everybody's really into it. This real young girl's like so excited, telling me all about it. So we asked what the rules are. And so apparently there's 7 guys on each team, and there's a line in the middle of a court. The court kind of looks like a tennis court. So there's this line, and there's 7 on each team. But when it's time for one team to go, one person from that side comes over to this side. And I guess one of their guys stands out because 3 groups of 2 men are huddled up. Okay, so there's these three groups of 2, and then there's the one opponent from that team. Okay, he's over here, and or flip that around, I think, because they're in front of him. And somehow he's supposed to try to get through these 3 groups that have to keep their hands held, get through them to the other side of that line. And without them tackling him, I guess, or something. Still don't really understand. But the fun part is, that I really could not understand, is that the entire time this one guy, who's the opponent on this side, is on this side, the whole time he's in the rink, I guess, if you will, he has to say, kabaddi, 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 kabaddi. And if he stops, then that's their permission to all 6 tackle him. And if they tackle him with none of his appendages being over the line, then they get the point and he loses a point. So this idea of kabaddi came home to me when in this short little passage, this short chapter, this psalmist uses the word keep or keeper 6 times. He's continually reminding himself, kabaddi, 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 keeper, keeper, keeper. He is my keeper. My mind is set on the keeper, not on what I'm being kept from. So I guess that's keeping his head in the game, isn't it? Like he's like, I'm playing kabaddi. Like I'm not going to forget what sport I'm playing kabaddi. And so I'm not going to forget who my keeper is. When I'm in the midst of horror and tragedy and sickness and job loss and child loss and whatever I'm up under, I'm not going to forget who my keeper is. He knows what we need to be kept from, and he knows what we need to be kept in. We need to focus on who he is. Okay, the other thing is that our keeper, he has a 24-hour, 365-day-a-year surveillance in our life. We don't have to wonder. He's not going to slumber. He's not going to sleep. It's day, it's night, it's moon, it's sun. It's now and it's forevermore. He is always and ever watching and always and ever present. many of you know that about 2 or 3 months ago, shortly before we went to Ireland, Kevin's truck had been keyed, like all downside, and his truck is really old, so it wasn't like that big of a deal, but it was obvious, like it had been keyed. And so we just assumed it must have happened like at the mall, or which we don't go to the mall, but like at the grocery store or something like that. We don't have anything against the mall, they're just obnoxious. I didn't want that to sound like we don't go to the mall. I just don't like to. So, anyways, I apparently have ADD tonight as well. So, so his truck was keyed, and then, so that happened before we took our little Christmas vacation with our family, and then, like 1 or 2 days after we came back, my red Honda minivan that was parked at our house, I walked out to go run an errand and noticed that the same side of the vehicle as Kevin's, my van had now been keyed all the way down the side, which is super, it's a lot more frustrating because it's like a 2020, I think, like it's a newer vehicle. I always wanted a Honda van. I don't know why. I'm a nerd, but that was like a bucket list. Didn't even get it. I drove Dodge minivans until my kids were all out of the house, and now I finally have, well, they weren't out yet, but they were almost out, a Honda minivan. So anyways, so it's keyed now all down the side. So the night after we discovered that, I was sitting on my couch in the living room at 10:30. Kevin had just gone back to take a shower, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, if you've been into our house, we kind of live in the country. So people don't stop by my house very often unannounced, but especially not at 10:30 p.m., right? So our house kind of faces the road, and I would say that my back side door is probably about 3/4 of an acre up my driveway, maybe, right? So it's up on the back side of my house. I'm sitting in the living room, and all of a sudden, that back laundry room side door, I hear hard and loud 8 knocks. And you know how your brain takes a minute sometimes? So I'm like, what? Did Kevin like go help the dog? Like, is he locked out? And then, so I start to go toward the back door. And then I hear the shower, and I'm like, no, he did not come out. He's still in the shower. And so I catch myself, and I've got the phone already on 911. I get into the bathroom, or to the bedroom. And those of you who attend our church on Sunday morning, you may have heard Kevin at some point tell you his biggest fear, his biggest nightmare, is to be attacked while in the shower without clothing on. He super has a fear of that. And so I run in, and he jumps out and grabs his towel, grabs his gun, loads it, runs out to the window as fast as he can to where it would be closest window to that door, pulls the curtain back. Of course, nobody was there, but if they had been, they would have been quite afraid of this really white man in this towel with a gun. So he took off. Whoever it was had taken off running, because 9 minutes later when the cops got there, of course, he's already gone. We have no idea. Also, we don't know when this happened, but we actually just noticed it. So I don't know. Surely it hasn't been since, because we've gone, I don't think it could have been, but his license plate on the back of his pickup has also been taken. And so there's a little bit of an unsettled feeling, because the very first time I mentioned it to my daughter, she has a specific person's name that she thought it was. And so that person showed up when Brittany was in town with Kevin at a store where we were. And she just has always kind of wished that person didn't know where we lived. So I'm just saying, like, there's that sense of fear that kind of sets in, and that vulnerability. Like, my window that was over the kitchen sink, so I'm sitting on the couch, and our living room and our kitchen is open, right? And so that window, I was sitting there on the couch, like, I felt seen. I was dressed and everything like that, but I'm just saying, like, I live out in the country. I don't expect to be seen at my home. Yeah. And so that was very unsettling. So the next day, we went and spent a whole bunch of money that we didn't have right now to spend, really, and put up surveillance cameras. And so we have 4 different cameras on our house now. And 24 hours a day it's recording, and we can go back and check on what has happened. So that's what I was going to say. We've gone back and checked. I think the license plate must have already been taken before we started the cameras. But anyways, all of that to say, I do actually feel totally safe now, because I have, whether I should or shouldn't, I feel the same kind of safe as I did before all of this happened, right? Because there is cameras all over my house, and we've checked them. They're working. They're recording all the time. So I do have a sense of security again, besides the fact that I trust in my God, that everything's okay and everything's being watched. And how much more so is it for us all day, every day, whether we're in India, whether we're on a flight, whether we're at home, whether we're in our house with or without surveillance, on our own property, the Lord is never far from his people. He is always watching. He is always present.
So where was that big old dog of yours?
No, our chocolate lab had to be put down.
Yeah. Just Kit
It's a
Kat.
really long story. It's just the mutt Kit Kat that's apparently going to live forever. She never gets sick. Oh, Kit Kat does. No.
I was gonna
Kit
say,
Kat's
'cause
like,
we had a noise at like 1:30 in the morning, and Bailey just started barking.
Oh,
but
no.
we knew somebody was there because she started growling,
yeah.
and we think they were in the backyard because our back door has a long window, and we don't have any privacy film on it because it's the back door.
Yeah.
So as soon as we heard the growl, James got up, grabbed
Yeah.
the gun, but by the time he went out, they were gone.
Yeah.
But I was like, somebody's out there because she's growling.
Yeah.
She doesn't
No,
growl.
our
just for
dog that we
nothing.
do still have, Kit Kat, she actually is terrifying. But it's only like when we had the other dog, Bradley. If Bradley got after her, like was playing with her, which is all he ever did, he was so sweet. She gets this horrifying look on her face, but never at humans. Apparently, she doesn't know what bad guys are. So no, she does no good
She's
whatsoever.
like, come in, come in.
Yeah. Kit Kat's like, come right in. Would you give me some food? Yeah. Our dog's name is Kit Kat. I know it doesn't make sense. But anyways. Okay. So our last stop tonight on this journey, our first was accompanied by Yahweh in the climb, kept by Yahweh at all times. And our last one is preserved by Yahweh amidst all evil. So in verse 5, in verse 7 and 8, it says, the Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in. This second line of verse 7, he will keep your life. In the New American Standard Version and also some really early versions, it actually says, the Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your soul. And the idea, if you go back to the text, the original text, kind of has the sense or the tense kind of on it that this is not just your physical life. Like it's encompassing all of who you are as a believer, as a child of God, your soul, your body, your emotions, your personality, who you are. So we know from all the other Psalms that we can look at and from scripture in general and from a history of missionary stories and martyr stories. When it says here that the Lord will keep you from all evil, that can't mean, if we don't take it out of the context of history and out of the entirety of the scripture, it can't mean that evil will never prevail, right? So we just studied through Ecclesiastes on Sunday mornings not very long ago, and we learned that at times, evil on this earth does prevail. Satan is known as the power of the prince of the air, is Satan. So in our day, on this earth, at times, evil will prevail. But even when evil or sickness or harm, evil whether it's been done by us, consequences from our own sin, evil that's done to us by someone else, evil just because of living in a fallen world, when it does come our way, and if it does even take our life or mar or maim our bodies, our life, our soul will be kept for all eternity. And then one day, even those martyrs who were burned at the stake, who were hung, who were murdered in horrible ways and completely disintegrated by being burned, on that day, on that resurrection day, when we're all brought to the beautiful city of God, they will be fully resurrected. Every molecule that Creator gave them in the beginning will be brought back together. Their soul, their spirit, their body will be one, and they will be in heaven with Christ for all eternity. So we will be kept. Our issue is that here and now we're afraid of the harm that might come in the midst of that evil to us. But when we focus on our kavadi, our keeper, when we continue to put our posture right and look up to this help that is coming to us to walk with us through the fire, it doesn't mean we're not going to have to walk through it. But his help is present with us, bringing us forward through it. We will be kept and preserved now and forevermore. That's all I have for tonight. So does anybody have any feedback, any thoughts on Psalms 121 or what we talked about tonight?